Winter is here and Game of Thrones Season 6 has sadly drawn to a close. But what a season it's been! Jon came back from the dead, we learned the secret origins of Hodor, we finally got to see dragons in battle, and apparently the producers are fond of a good fart gag or two.
This was, of course, new territory for Game of Thrones, being the first season to pass the source material. And let's be honest, there were a couple of problems with the writing. But what the show lacked in nuanced political manoeuvring and eloquent dialogue, it made up for in huge payoffs and some serious what-the-fuck moments. R plus L equals J is confirmed. Dany is finally heading to Westeros, and damn, that was probably the most satisfying finale in Game of Thrones history.
But while there were some big plot developments, there were also some less than satisfactory moments. Several characters pretty much tread water the entire season, and lots of storylines just go nowhere. Tyrion was criminally underused. Brienne and the Hound went AWOL, and how many times do we need to see that stupid fucking Bravosi play?
But to be fair, it did afford some other benefits.
Hello babies.
Game of Thrones is one of the most talked about shows on TV, with legions of fans endlessly speculating about possible future plots. So it was a little strange to see the show spend so much time teasing us with fan theories like Clegane Bowl and Lady Stoneheart, only to dash everybody's hopes. A sly wink to the fans, or a giant middle finger, I'm not sure myself.
The show did have one meta race up its sleeve though. Bran's visions gave us the chance to delve deep into the history of Westeros, and finally get a few things straight. And unexpectedly, we were thrown headfirst into the Tower of Joy scene in episode 3.
Though annoyingly, we had to wait till episode 10 for the full reveal.
Yeah, episode 3 was more of a gentle intro into Bran's powers, and after the twirly sword fight, Ned seems to hear his time-travelling son call out to him. And despite the three-eyed raven's assertions, it seems that Bran can affect past events.
And things really accelerate in episode 5. As the White Army descend on their hideout, Bran walks into the young Willis to aid his future escape, but in doing so, permanently damages the young boy's mind, reducing his vocabulary to a single word. It was a little confusing how it all went down, but the way young Willis looks at Bran seems to acknowledge and accept his future fate. It would appear Bran's actions are more of a time travel paradox. The ink is dry. That's how it always went down, and Hodor becomes an even more heroic character.
It's always so upsetting when Hodor gets hurt or injured, but this was just too much. How emotional was that final scene? I'm clinging to the hope that we're going to see the gentle giant again in future. Maybe he'll be kept hostage by the Night's King in an attempt to draw Bran out, but most likely we'll see him return as an ice zombie. After Hodor's demise, Bran's visions start extending into plots in other locations. We get a rapid montage showing us historic events revealing the caches of wildfire beneath King's Landing. And as the High Sparrow versus Cersei storyline drew to a conclusion, the wildfire of course came back into play. So what did you make of the events in King's Landing, Doopie?
Well, given how much time they spent in King's Landing with the ins and outs of the High Sparrow consolidating his power, it was a bit of a shame to just have everyone get 4th of July. It was one of the most tightly wound storylines this year, and I was looking forward to seeing how Marjorie would outwit the High Sparrow, but it turns out Cersei is the real player, as if there's any doubt, and just as it looks like the High Sparrow's got the better of her, she went and blew the city to hell, and yet again, her decisions bite her in the ass as her reckless actions lead to Tommen's suicide, thus fulfilling the prophecy of Maggie the Frog.
Yeah, I believe my exact words were, "What are you doing, you twat?" when I watched. Ultimately, Cersei has wrestled the power back and she must be satisfied by that. Throughout the series, she's encountered all kinds of opposition and managed to come out on top every time. It'll be interesting to see how the Dany versus Cersei plot plays out next year, because if Cersei's proved anything, she's most dangerous when backed into a corner. But I'm not quite sure how she'll fare against 3 enormous fire-breathing dragons. Speaking of dragons, did you like Dany's story this season?
I was happy with the resolution, but again, it felt like they were giving Dany things to do. It was good to see the Dothraki storyline be resolved quite quickly, and as epic as the talking head scene was in the tent, it did feel a bit repetitive after Season 1's bonfire.
Yeah, and George Martin has said several times that it was a one-off, miracle-like moment, and that Dany is not fireproof, but obviously the show is its own beast. beast. And like you said, it's best to be done with that storyline and have Dany finally set off for Westeros. But how about that dragon action?
The dragon action was pretty sweet. It was great to see something actually happen in Meereen for once, because up until that point, the storylines just went nowhere, really. Lots of failed attempts at political intrigue and far too much wine drinking. So when the slaver ships arrived, there was a real shift in gears, and we got to see the dragons in all their destructive glory.
So there was definitely an undercurrent of girl power this season, which seems to be in line with a lot of pop culture this year.
Ghostbusters!
Do we buy this new feminist version of Game of Thrones?
But it was refreshing to see women clawing back some of the power, especially considering some of the horrific things that have been happening on the show till now. Sansa and Brienne form a nice little alliance and push Littlefinger on the back foot, which we don't see that often, but some of the other stuff felt a little bit forced. Dany and Yara got a similar scene when the Ironborn arrived. Although I understand where this is coming from and why it's important, it did seem a little in your face to me. We get it. Women are people too. I'll get back in the kitchen and make me a damn sandwich.
One thing I definitely haven't been too happy about is Arya's plot. Even after all those Rocky-style training montages, the waif was still better than her in every way. I'm not even sure she learned the tools of the Faceless Men beyond the endless staff work.
If you can fight with a staff, you can dodge a damn ball. But yeah, Jack even tells her, "A girl is not ready."
After all that, she gets stabbed, jumps into a canal full of piss and shit, and somehow makes it out alive.
Bit of milk of the poppy cures everything, dude.
And then she gets a sort of Omens moment, gets her sight beyond sight, and manages to kill the waif. And to top it all, she's allowed to leave the Faceless Men. This exclusive League of Assassins. What the fuck? Hasn't she betrayed the many-faced god beyond forgiveness at this point?
But you gotta admit, dude, the Walder Frey payoff was absolutely glorious to behold.
It was, even though she rather speedily makes her way back to Westeros, infiltrates the twins, cooks up some Frey pies, and somehow knows how to change her face.
She probably borrowed Littlefinger's jetpack. Jetpacks are everywhere. They are to Westeros as bicycles are to Amsterdam. Arya's storyline was a little bit mismanaged. They could have condensed a lot of what happened into a few episodes, but the same applies to a lot of other characters this season.
Yeah, a great deal of plotting punctuated by extreme action and violence.
Yeah, and that was definitely true with Jon and Sansa. We knew from the outset that retaking Winterfell would be high on their priorities, so given that episode 9 almost certainly had to be dedicated to that, we knew nothing else of substance was going to happen till then.
Okay, so let's talk Bastard Ball. For me, the action was out of this world. I'm amazed that Game of Thrones keeps finding ways to make episode 9 bigger and better each season. I saw a lot of people comment that the episode was too predictable, but it has to be said, the show's usual strategy is to fuck us over with a twist ending, where the bad guys prevail. So, although it did play out somewhat expectedly, are we happy that the good guys came out on top for a change? Albeit at the loss of Rickon, who obviously hadn't heard of zigzagging. What did you think of the episode?
Rickon was a chump, and he shan't be missed. For me, it was the best episode of the season. It was like Hard Home all over again, but with a little less come at me, bro. The highlight was when Sansa released the hounds, and Ramsay finally got his comeuppance, long awaited. I'm really glad that they showed him getting his face ripped off by the dogs. Although I was enjoying Jon pounding his head into the floor too. You gotta ask, why did poor Won not have a shield or a weapon or anything? Shit, a tree would have done.
I think it was to stack the odds against them, so when the Knights of the Vale came through, we'd be extra relieved. To be fair, it did feel very Lord of the Rings at the end, but we're at the stage of the series now that we can't continue with all the twists and subversions. At some point, Game of Thrones has to conform to fantasy tropes, otherwise we'd never see the back of characters like Ramsay, and we'd just be going in circles, and I'm not sure that would be satisfying for most viewers. Though, with that said, I'm quite open for some more twists and turns in the remaining episodes. So, talk to me about the final episode. What did you like?
What did I like? Transition from baby Jon to adult Jon. I especially liked the High Sparrow exploding.
That was pretty satisfying.
What did you like?
The opening 20 minutes or so were just pure classic Game of Thrones.
Yeah, it was really good. It was so quiet, so still.
Yeah, silence was used so effectively. The music built tension perfectly, and you got this sense of looming destruction. Then, lo and behold, Cersei goes full on Michael Bay and blows everyone to hell. And not only did she wipe out her immediate threats, not to mention a whole bunch of innocent people, she got to exact her revenge on Septa and Ella as well, in the most brutal fashion.
Yeah, I like the way she got the nun, who I think was Balak before she turned demonic. Cersei's torture turned the Shame Nun into Balak from Conjuring.
It was probably one of the best directed episodes ever. On top of all the action in King's Landing, they squeezed in some amazing character moments across Westeros. Have to say, didn't see the King in the North stuff coming. It was fun to see Sam arrive in Old Town and gaze up at the immense library. It was good to see Melisandre finally get her just desserts, though it probably means we won't get to see her boobies for a while. I loved seeing Faceless Arya blending into the Lannister Frey party, but probably my favourite moment was when Dany names Tyrion Hand of the Queen. It's nice to see Tyrion being valued for his own worth instead of being exploited as a pawn. He clearly has so much to give, and you can see exactly what it meant to him in that moment.
Yeah, I didn't like the way he kneeled there.
I didn't realise he was even standing on the little step at that point.
At one point I thought, have they filmed this to make us think that he's the same size as Dany? Because clearly he's not. Peter Dinklage's got it now written into his contract that he has to be a little bit taller.
Yeah, he's not Tom Cruise. He doesn't require ego steps to make him look taller than he actually is.
Tom Cruise, Robert Downey Jr., you hire them, you hire a wooden box too. So, on to the next season, Doopie. What do you think is going to happen?
Almost certainly we're going to see Bran trying to influence the past some more. There's been a lot of speculation that he might be the one that sends Aerys Targaryen mad. But hopefully we're going to shed some more light on the White Walkers. It appears as though they were created as some kind of weapon of mass destruction that's now out of control. So hopefully we get to learn more about their true motivations, because it's very un-Game of Thrones-like to present a villain with no grey area.
Speaking of villains as well, it kind of seems as if Euron might be set up as the next villain. Maybe not the big bad villain, but at least a secondary antagonist. Obviously in the books he has the horn that can allegedly control dragons, at least he thinks it can. So it would be quite interesting to see that if he does come face to face with Daenerys, because up until now his only weapon seems to be his enormous cock. And of course, being an enormous cock. But I guess what we're all looking forward to is Dany and Jon uniting. This is where everything seems to be leading towards the end of Season 7 in an epic union of fire and ice.
So what did you think of Game of Thrones Season 6? Was it the best season ever? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section. Or, alternatively, you could send us a raven. Our next video is going to be a review / what's the difference on the new Batman v Superman extended cut. And feel free to check out the other Doopie videos above. Thanks for watching.